U.S. stock futures were little changed Thursday night after the Dow Jones Industrial Average notched a fresh record, heading for its best weekly winning streak since 2019. Dow Jones Industrial Average futures fell by 10 points, or 0.03%. S&P 500 dipped 0.04%, and Nasdaq 100 futures rose 0.06%. Wall Street is coming off yet another fresh record high for the Dow on Thursday, after notching its first-ever close above 37,000 on Wednesday. The 30-stock benchmark rose 158 points, or 0.43% at 37,248.35. The S&P 500 gained 0.26% to 4,719.55. The Nasdaq Composite rose 0.19% to 14,761.56. The S&P 500 could soon join the Dow with its own all-time high. The broader index is less than 1.6% away from a record close set in January 2022. The Nasdaq is roughly 8% away from its highest ever close, and about 9% from its all-time intraday high. Stocks rallied this week after the Federal Reserve on Wednesday admitted that its efforts to tamp down inflation are taking hold, and indicated 3 interest rate cuts are coming in 2024, buoying investor sentiment. The November retail sales data that came in stronger than expected on Thursday, following this week's cooler inflation readings, added to hopes the Federal Reserve could navigate a soft landing. What we heard from Fed Chair Powell was that it's not about the economy, it's not about financial conditions, it's not about the jobs market. It's about inflation, and inflation have been coming down pretty far and fast. Anastasia Amoroso, chief investment strategist at iCapital, told CNBC's Closing Bell on Thursday. And if we're at a point where inflation is 2.7% by March, that consensus is expecting interest rates are still at 5.5%, Amoroso said. That's a big gap that the Fed can do something about, meaning cutting rates. Treasury yields plunged this week. The 10-year Treasury yield fell to below 4% despite topping 5% in October. The major averages are headed for their 7th straight positive week. As of Thursday, the Dow is higher on the week by 2.8%. The S&P 500 is up by 2.5%, while the Nasdaq Composite rose 2.5% this week. Fewer investors are pessimistic about the outlook for stocks over the next 6 months than at any time since 2017, according to the latest weekly survey from the American Association of Individual Investors. The percentage of bearish investors tumbled to just 19.3% in the latest week, down from 27.4% last week and an historical average of 31.0%. Bullish investors grew to 51.3%, the most since mid-July and up from 47.3% last week and an historical average of 37.5%. Optimism is now unusually high, AAII said, noting that bullishness is above its historical average for a 6th straight week and 7th week in 10. These sentiment levels are bad news for contrarian investors who might interpret them as meaning the stock market is overbought and that investors are closer to being done buying than they are being done selling.